In a smoky tent somewhere in Anatolia, the story goes, a sultan sat in chains while his favorite wife poured wine for the man who had destroyed his world. Some witnesses said she was stripped of her royal robes, reduced from queen to servant in front of jeering generals. Whether every detail of that scene is literal truth or later exaggeration, one thing is certain. The fall of Sultan Bayezid I and the rise of Timur the Lame is one of the most brutal psychological dramas in medieval history. This isn't just a story about a lost battle, it's about pride, humiliation, and how two men who believed they were instruments of destiny ended up as cautionary tales. The Thunderbolt who thought he was unstoppable. Bayezid I didn't rise from obscurity, so he was born into power as the son of Sultan Murad I. His nickname, Yildirim, the Thunderbolt, came from his lightning speed in battle and his ruthless efficiency. His path to the throne began in blood. At the Battle of Kosovo in 1389, his father was assassinated. Bayezid was declared sultan on the battlefield, and immediately secured his rule by having his own brother Yaqub strangled before their father's corpse had even cooled. That set the tone for his reign, fast, decisive, and merciless. He crushed rival Turkish beyliks, tightened Ottoman control over the Balkans, and in 1396 delivered the victory that shook Europe, Nicopolis, where he annihilated a crusading army of French, Hungarian, and other European nobles. To Christendom, it was a disaster. To Bayezid, it was confirmation he was untouchable. He mocked his captured enemies, ransomed some, and sent others home just so he could beat them again. He even boasted he would ride into Rome and feed his horse from the altar of St. Peter's. And like many rulers who believe they are destiny incarnate, Bayezid stopped seeing danger, even when it was marching toward him. The lame conqueror from nowhere. While Bayezid dominated the Balkans like a rising comet, a far deadlier force was emerging in the east, not from a palace, but from the steppe. Timur, born around 1336 near Samarkand to a minor noble family, wasn't a prince. He was a survivor, raider, horse thief, and fighter. A skirmish left his leg and hand crippled, earning him the name Timur the Lame. But instead of stopping him, those wounds fueled an obsession to leave his mark on the world. Timur didn't just conquer, he weaponized terror. In Isfahan and Baghdad, he built pyramids of skulls as warnings, turning brutality into propaganda. He married into Genghis Khan's lineage for legitimacy, but titles meant little. Everyone knew the true power rested with him. By the time Bayezid dreamed of marching into Rome, Timur had already crushed Central Asian rivals, subdued Persia, smashed the Golden Horde, and sacked Delhi so thoroughly it took generations to recover. His empire stretched across ruins and terrified vassals. A collision between the Thunderbolt and the Lame Conqueror wasn't just likely, it was inevitable. A war that started with letters. Their empires met in Anatolia, where Bayezid had absorbed small Turkish principalities that used to look east toward Central Asian powers. These displaced princes appealed to Timur. He saw both an opportunity and an insult. Before the armies met, the two men fought with letters. Timur's first message was icily polite, dripping with condescension. He called Bayezid Roman Caesar to mock his European style, reminded him of his pride, and suggested he was an upstart who had grown soft-fighting Christians instead of real Turco-Mongol warriors. He offered peace. If Bayezid would return, disputed lands, and accept a subordinate position. The Thunderbolt exploded. His replies were the 15th century equivalent of rage tweets. He mocked Timur's humble origins as a steppe bandit, ridiculed his tents and his limp, and, fatally, took the fight into the personal realm by making an obscene curse involving Timur's wives. In a culture where family honor was sacred, this wasn't just an insult, it was a declaration of holy war. Timur's tone changed. The disappointed father turned into the executioner. If Bayezid wanted the conflict to be personal, Timur would make sure the punishment was personal too. Ankara, when pride marches into a trap. In 1402, Bayezid abandoned his siege of Constantinople and rushed east to confront Timur near Ankara. but the speed that made him legendary now doomed him. Timur reached the Shubuk Plain first, seized the water sources, and even diverted a stream, leaving the Ottomans to arrive thirsty and exhausted. Bayezid's generals begged him to wait. He refused. The Thunderbolt only knew how to attack. On the battlefield, his army looked powerful. Janissaries, Sipahi cavalry, and Serbian heavy knights under Stefan Lazarevich. But many of his Anatolian troops secretly resented him and felt closer to Timur's steppe identity than to Bayezid's polished European-facing court. Timur's forces were a terrifying mix of steppe veterans, Persian infantry, and war elephants. When battle erupted, the Serbian contingent held firm, but the Anatolian beyliks suddenly switched sides, unveiling Timur's banners and striking their Ottoman comrades. Bayezid's army collapsed. Only a stubborn ring of Janissaries and Serbians fought on around their sultan. Bayezid refused to flee and fought until he was surrounded and captured, the first and only Ottoman sultan taken prisoner in battle. The Thunderbolt had finally met an enemy he could not outrun. The cage, the queen, and a punishment built from shame. After Bayezid's capture, stories vary, but all agree Timur wanted to break him, not kill him. Some say Timur greeted him while finishing a chess match. Others claim the Sultan was paraded in a barred litter like a trophy. Symbolic or real, the point was the same. Bayezid was no longer a ruler. The worst blow came at a victory feast. His Serbian wife, Olivera Despina, captured with the harem, was ordered to serve wine to Timur's generals. Some accounts say she was made to do so naked. Even conservative Ottoman sources agree. Seeing his beloved wife reduced from queen to servant crushed Bayezid completely. This was Timur's real revenge. Not a strike at Bayezid's body, but at his pride and identity. Killing him would have been easy. Making him watch was the true punishment. Death in a cage, empire in pieces. Bayezid didn't remain Timur's prisoner for long. Less than a year after Ankara, he died in captivity. The official explanation was illness or a stroke, a tidy version that suited Timur. But rumors of suicide spread immediately. Some said Bayezid bit into a poison hidden inside his ring. Others claimed he smashed his head against the bars of his confinement. Whatever the truth, one thing is clear. A man who built his identity on invincibility could not endure life as a defeated spectacle. While Bayezid withered, Timur achieved his real objective. He didn't absorb the Ottoman Empire, he broke it. He restored the old Anatolian beyliks and split Bayezid's lands among his surviving sons, triggering the Ottoman interregnum, an 11-year civil war in which Bayezid's heirs betrayed and killed each other for the throne. The empire that once terrified Europe collapsed inward, delaying the fall of Constantinople by nearly 50 years. Timur, meanwhile, marched on with grand ambitions to conquer Ming China. But in 1405, winter and illness succeeded where armies had failed. He died before the campaign began. And just like the Ottomans, his own empire immediately fractured in brutal succession struggles. The Scourge of God and the Thunderbolt proved to be the same in the end, mortal men whose empires cracked the moment they fell. Olivera, the survivor in the shadows. Caught between these two collapsing giants was Olivera Despina. After Bayezid's death, her value as a political trophy dropped. Sources suggest Timur eventually released her, perhaps out of boredom, perhaps as a gesture to her brother Stefan, who had fought bravely at Ankara. She returned to Serbia not as a radiant queen, but as a walking reminder of catastrophe. What do you do after you've been at the center of one of the most infamous humiliations of your age? She could not easily remarry. She could not re-enter politics. Every noble who looked at her would remember the stories: the captive queen in Timur's tent, the woman serving wine while her husband watched. So she did the only thing that offered any kind of peace. She withdrew. According to tradition, Olivera spent the rest of her life in a convent, living quietly as a nun and dying sometime after the mid-15th century. For all the thunder, skull pyramids, and marching armies, she outlived both of the great men who had defined her fate. And that brings us to the end of one of history's darkest and most unforgettable chapters. If you found this journey as gripping as we did, make sure to hit that like and don't forget to subscribe. Tell me in the comments, do you think Bayezid truly died by his own hand? Or was there more to the story? Thank you for watching, and until next time, stay curious.